Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free, Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
We'd like to welcome you to Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich, and I'd like to introduce you to my co-host and longtime friend and spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. And so glad to be with you today and with all of our guests, however you may be listening, viewing the show on our YouTube Stress-Free Living radio channel, on a stream, on a radio broadcast. Nowadays with technology, there's so many ways that you could be part of this show, and we're glad that you're here in any way that you have chosen to be part of us today. Ratanjit, I've always kind of been enthralled by the way that these professional motivators, inspirational speakers, they always say the same thing. They say that whatever you want, whatever you can dream about, whatever you focus on, you can have. So if you want wealth, if you want that amazing boat, if you want that amazing house, that amazing car, if you want just so much money that you don't know what to do with it all, then get a picture of that and put that so that that's the first thing you see when you go into the bathroom in the morning when you wake up, that's on the mirror. When you go in your main room in your house, that's on the wall, that's on the refrigerator. Put that picture on there because that'll cause you to focus on there continuously. And with that focus, you can achieve anything. So I wanted to talk about that today because is it possible that you can just focus your way to wealth? Can you just, by the abilities that we have within us and perhaps with the energy that we have around us, is it possible that if we just learn how to do that, we can have anything?
Yes, we have to understand this focus first. If we do not understand this, what are we focusing? If we focus our fear, we focus our greed, we focus our ego, we focus our insecurity, then we don't have the power of focus with us. It is called pseudo-focus. It's not going to result into anything. When we go to this, we all have gone to this test when we were in school. So if we are focused on fear and greed, and many times it made you forget everything. Although you have prepared so many things, and many times so many students end up not remembering anything because they become so nervous. So if the focus is driven by your human body mode, which is basically insecure, and it will breed fear, greed, and ego, then no focus in the world will teach you how to create wealth. Wealth cannot be forced. Wealth cannot be obtained by regulation. Wealth cannot be obtained by mortaling somebody. Wealth cannot be obtained by replicating somebody. wealth cannot be inherited, although we feel, because you cannot retain it. It gets out of your hand. And ultimately, after you made the wealth, you still cannot sustain it. The statistics of people who have won lottery, more than majority ends up filing bankruptcy. They cannot sustain that wealth. So all our focus, which is all driven by in the human body mode, then this focus or retention or all these things don't work. That is why to have wealth, the real wealth, you have to have energy within you giving you focus. When energy, which is enlivening you, that force, when that focuses on anything, you can acquire just about anything, whether it's money or fame or anything. But unfortunately, that focus is not available to you unless you have a real purpose which is aligned to that force within you, right?
I hear you say that, and I can't argue that that's the right way to go and probably would have that right result. But in the real world, we all know people who are wealthy, some of them extremely wealthy, and yet they are greedy. They are insecure. They are, they're not, maybe they're good people, but they don't have the best habits. Okay, to use some of your terminology, they have bad habits, and yet despite those bad habits that are based on greed and insecurity and fear, they are wealthy. So I hate to argue with you on this, but it seems like, maybe that's not sustainable. Maybe for 10 years, 10 years later, maybe they will have, blown through all the money and they no longer have it. Or maybe their greed eventually causes them to do something and take a risk with the money that was a bad risk and they've lost it all. I'm not arguing that happens a lot, but the wealth can be there even if they seemingly do it by a focus on greed. I mean, the whole concept, what I introduced at the beginning of the show, and maybe you've never been to any of those seminars, but I've been a part of way too many of those in my earlier years. I mean, they literally say, if you want that sports car, if you want that $100,000 car, then you get an incredible picture of that and you put that on the mirror when you wake up. You put that on the refrigerator when you go into the kitchen for your opening glass of orange juice in the morning. You have to see that. I mean, that's all about greed. I mean, if you really break that down, it's all about my greed. I want that. I want that car above everything else. But that is a motivator, isn't it? Doesn't that cause you to say, I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work longer. I'm going to figure out, above all other problems, I'm going to figure out how to get that car.
Before we get to that, we live in this country, United States, and it is full of examples, including myself. I came here to US at that time because of the limitation of the foreign exchange in India. I was only able to transfer $8 of didn't matter how much money I had in India, but I could not bring it here. So I came here with $8, and eventually I developed a company and eventually sold it to Dow Chemical. So in I fulfill that American dream. So it is full of stories of American dreams. Fundamentally, it happens like this. If when we figure out through our education, through your uniqueness, through when we figure out an idea which adds higher value than other ideas present in the market. This idea either produces a product or technology or a service, but it adds value. So that is the path to make more money. When you add value, that is allows you a path to add more money. So once you are simply want more money, everybody wants more money. But until you figure out a idea, and when that idea becomes a passion, once that becomes a passion, you are more likely to be successful in converting that idea into wealth. So now there are three ways. When that idea is basically feeding your ego and needs to make more money, because that idea is adding value, you will make more money. But if your entire focus is on money, in the process, your relationships are going to suffer. In the process, you have more turnover, you have more problems. So now there is another area. So supposing you basically like something, you like music, and you focus totally on music and you become very good at music. And that is your inner wealth, right?
Yeah.
Now, the sustainable wealth happens when you combine this inner wealth with the worldly wealth. If this music becomes commercial and you are able to get an album which is becoming a hit, you can make money and still enjoy. Because you enjoy it, you will continuously make better albums. Similarly, if you like Stephen Jobs, he loved computer. He loved to add value, right? His product sold, but his love propelled that product sales, research. So until that inner joy, which I call inner wealth, until you combine the inner wealth with the commercial wealth, you will not have the sustainability to continuously make wealth. So it is very important. If you only are interested in money, but you don't enjoy it, you eventually, all the money you make will still give you loneliness, still give you depression. There are many examples we have seen, many people who have made money end up committing suicide. So money is not ultimately the motive. So again, going back, this only money path is driven by, you can only make money somehow if you add value. Even if you are greedy or if you are whatever you are, But if your product or service adds value, there is going to be demand. You're going to make money. But if your intention of making more money will force you to cut corners, will force you to intimidate your people, force you to become egoic, force you to all these things, your sustainability disappears. Sooner or later, you end up destroying this empire of making money. Ray?
Yeah, I like everything you just said as far as aligning your inner wealth, turning that into a passion, and then that would lead to a sustainable commercial wealth, if you will. And the idea of a musician, I just happened to catch a concert last week, and the passion from the performer was just so amazing. And there's no doubt that that's what is continuing to allow him to come up with new songs and new albums, and that people want to see this performer because the joy that he brings to his show on stage is just, it's amazing, and it is contagious. I mean, the audience then feels the joy and feels the passion of the music, and that it just keeps it going. So I love that whole thought. And whether music is one area, but it could be Steve Jobs is another one, and any other one like that. So that's great. But what I also know, though, and we all do, somebody who loves, and let me pick on poetry because I like that myself, and I know a number of people that have said, you know what, I'm going to make a career of this. I'm a really good writer. Forget poetry, just writing in general. People that have been writing books, writing them for years and years, decades, and they never get that bestseller. They never get that book that's even perhaps bought by a publisher. They self-publish and it still doesn't work. So there's their inner wealth. They have great talent. They are thinking they're adding value because they're bringing these great stories out to people to amuse them, entertain them, interest them, and yet they're never attaining any wealth from that. So how is it just luck that what you happen to be good at is also what you can become wealthy at, and what drives you with that internal wealth is able to become commercial wealth? What's the distinction there? Why do you have some musicians that are amazing and they spend their whole life doing what they love, but they never attain wealth through it? They never get that commercial wealth that you talk about. What is the factor that changes that?
There is intellectual wealth, and there is another wealth which is we call it self-worth. So let's understand intellectual wealth, which inner wealth, which you call the music and all that. So there is two paths to that. One is through education and experience, right? Which is basically stale and limited. Because until you get on the path of continuously enhancing your education, sooner or later, whatever you have learned become obsolete. Right? The same thing with experience. You have to continuously turn that. There is another intellectual wealth, which is understanding that nature has never duplicated anything. So everything nature has made is unique masterpiece. So you are a unique masterpiece. So until you realize that and you find your uniqueness, it is said in industry, many of the coaches, they say, find your uniqueness, find your passion, find your passion. you'll be successful. So
Right.
until you find the uniqueness in you, which you have, so that uniqueness is your real intellectual wealth. Now, self-worth. There are two kinds of self-worth. People call self-worth, which is really nothing more than ego, pride. It is a false persona. The real self-worth comes from understanding that you are not the human body, but the enlivening force. Once you understand you are the enlivening force, you have no limits. You can do just about anything because you are power. And that knowing, if it gives you pride, that is only stays in the knowledge path. Once it gives you gratefulness, then you have internalized that thought of enlivening power. So basically, two differences. So if somebody knows that I'm enlivening power, the power is within me, that knowledge itself is only going to give you pride and ego. When you begin to live that knowledge, it gives you gratefulness. It energizes you. So these are two fundamental things of wealth, right?
And there's so much there to talk about. Intellectual wealth. I want to go back to that too. I want to talk about what you mean by that, and then I want to talk about the self-worth. You've just given us so many more topics to come back to, but we have to take a quick break. So we're going to do that for a brief 90 seconds and then come back with much more of Stress-Free Living. Stay with us. Okay, while we were on the break here, if I know Ratanjit just opened the door to a whole lot of new thoughts, but I'd like to welcome everybody. You all snuck in on us here at the last minute, so we couldn't say hello. Now we're saying hello to you. And if you would like to have a quick comment or a quick question, please do.
Well, good morning.
Hi,
Sorry,
Doug,
Doug,
late.
how are you?
But you know what, Ray, you mentioned the inner just have this drive to do good and all that stuff, but you never quite get the wealth from it. The thing that popped through my head was a marketing strategy. I mean, maybe I use my wife as a great artist. Everybody loves her artwork. She just loves to paint. She doesn't really care if she sells or not. It's just, I just love to paint. And so she never really worked on the marketing end of things to really sell her artwork. She sold a lot, by the way, but nothing to really say. It was a great career, a lot of money I made off of my beautiful art.
Did you ever try? Okay.
What was that?
Just don't know where we're going with that, Doug. Are you saying that she had enough fulfillment just from the fact that she painted and she didn't ever even try to make it a career?
Yeah, he says marketing is important to convert your passion into money.
Yes.
And you never tried to do that?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. What trying to say.
Okay. Got it. Okay, I apologize. I missed the point there. So
it was actually both two points, by the way, but I think you were both right.
Okay. All right. We are back on Stress-Free Living with Ratanjit Sandhi, yours truly, Ray Samich, talking today about wealth and can you focus your way to wealth? Is it more than passion? Is it not only within you, but you have to focus all of your abilities on it? It's a really interesting conversation. And Ratanjit, before we took the break there, you brought up a couple of things that I'd like to delve into a little bit more. You brought up the idea of intellectual wealth, and for people that maybe we're listening then to what else you got into. I want to go back and take my notes on there. The first part of intellectual wealth, you said, could be obtained by our education, our experiences. In other words, are outwardly things that we engage in, that we learn from. And you alluded earlier to like following a role model and trying to duplicate that role model just the way they did it exactly. And the point you made is that it could work, but it requires you to continue on that same path. You have to continue to get educated, continue to have those experiences. It isn't enough that it's going to, you do it a little bit, you go to school for 16 years, learn something, and then have that intellectual wealth continue. It continues an ongoing process. And then you said the second one is realizing that there's something unique about us. There's something unique about every single person. You use the term that every person is a unique masterpiece, which is just so beautiful and powerful and empowering to think about that. So I'm a unique masterpiece, whether I deserve it or not. I'm a unique masterpiece, and I have a special gift or gifts that are my intellectual wealth, that are part of me. Now, how do I discover what that is, Ratanjit? How do I figure it out? If every human being has that unique wealth, intellectual wealth in them, that they're a unique masterpiece, how do I really figure out what that is for me?
It's a very good question. Fundamentally, you have to dig deep inside you to comprehend that. And that only becomes available to you once you have a strong desire to make a difference. You heard the story of MAD, M-A-D-D. This lady who was a housewife, never worked in the commercial zone, and her son was killed by this drunk driver. And suddenly she became passionate about bringing new laws into order so that there are less drunk drivers on the road and there are less accidents which are resulting into killing people. And she was able to succeed that. And where did she find the marketing talent? Where did she find the writing new laws talent? Where did she find persuasive talent? So all that became available to her once she became passionate about having something done. So similarly, there is some incident, something which happens, which triggers a genuine demand or calls for you to dig deep and find that talent, that special skills, that uniqueness in you. So that is one way to find. So that doesn't mean should we wait for something bad to happen?
Yeah, I hope not.
So there is another way to do that, is this, that once you discover who you are, once you understand that you are not the human body, but the power which enlivening the human body, you are alive. And the reason you are alive is there is universal power present within you, which is we call as life, which is making this instrument, this human body, perform its functions. It is alive. So once you comprehend that, and begin to live that paradigm and develop this deep understanding of this whole truth, you will be empowered with utter gratefulness. And you will have the desire, inner desire, to serve this omnipresent power. So once you are parked in this mode of finding a way to serve, you will discover the uniqueness present within you. And you would serve this divine power present in other people, other life people, and you find a way, unique way to exercise that desire to serve uniquely to this universal power. And that will give you ideas. And you are not going to be tied to one idea. One idea will always give you another idea, because you are now in the mode of finding a better way to serve. So continuously, you are going to have the inner desire to better your last performance, because you are serving the divine force, the highest force present in each and every one. So ultimately, your mission is not controlled by your human body mode, which is filled with insecurity, fear, greed, and ego, but you are guided by the inner force, which is very secure and giving you utter gratefulness and compelling you to dig deep in yourself and continuously dig deep in yourself and find something great to add value. So you have the desire to make your best better, right?
So I think I'm grasping this, and I want to replay it back to you to see if this is what you're saying. Because when you first said that if I realize that I am, that there's a power within me, and that this uniqueness comes because I am realizing that to use our old expression, a spiritual being having a human experience. So I'm realizing that there's this other power that's coming within me to enliven me. That alone didn't answer my question that said, how do we know what we're uniquely good at? Okay, it was empowering to know that there's this power that enlivens me, and that I'm not really just my human person. I am something so much huge, more huge than that, and more powerful than that. But then you said about like making your best better, adding the highest value. So there is a step in there that says, once I realize that I can do anything because I am now this enlivened spirit, and the entire world is there as part of this enlivened universal spirit. Now, my only responsibility is to say, how do I uniquely fit into this universal world? Now that I am part of it, and I'm enlivened by it, and I am empowered by it, how do I add value to it? And that to me was kind of like the clincher. To me, that's what said, if I'm understanding this properly, now I say, okay, I have a responsibility. I have everything that I can do. I can touch everybody, but how do I do it as I was intended to do? And that causes me to do a deep search within me to say, what am I passionate about? what am I good at? What am I capable of doing that further sparks me, that further excites me, and gives me the enthusiasm about something that I can do, that I want to do for the rest of my human life. It causes me to do a deep search that says, okay, if I can do anything because I'm empowered by everything, what is it that I can most add the value with? Does this is this in line with what you said or not?
Yeah, it is in line. To explain this thing further, imagine if you grew up knowing that you are the only child and you don't have any, and suddenly your parents are not there, and suddenly you find there is another twin brother you have, and this twin brother has a whole family and has kids and wife and all that. Once you introduce to them, suddenly your desire to serve them, desire to love them happens because they are your family. So higher incentive is this, that once you know that everyone on this earth has the divine power within them to enliven them, same as which is present within you. So you are all one. So you have much higher desire to love them, to serve them. And then you dig deep in you to find, how do you do this? You will find new ways to continuously serve them through the product or through the service, through everything. So, typically our education and experience is uh, a channel to make more money. But there are so many millionaires, billionaires who are not even highly educated. They are college dropouts. So education itself is not the ticket to make the worldly wealth. Worldly wealth is a consequence of adding the highest value, consequence of finding your passion to serve, consequence of staying on the path of making your best better, right?
So many times today, you and I have used the term dig deep. And I just want to talk about that for a second, because people that I think are living their lives in the world that we have today are so overwhelmed by the day-to-day activities. Whether it's, technology is supposed to make things easier and more convenient and more efficient, but because there's so much technology around us, we all just feel so almost buried under it. And in the business world, and I work with several different businesses, I do everything kind of at the surface level. It's like, what do I have to do next? How do I handle this problem? And how do I get moving from A to B here? And it's all done in a really busy pace due to the hecticity of our life. And we don't dig deep, is my point. I don't have the time to dig deep on any of these things. They're all done putting out the fires and handling situations that are at the surface level. And it's dawning on me through this conversation that it is very necessary to use the unique talent that I have based on the universal power that I have, that I need to dig deep to engage in these activities. I need to do these at a different level. if I just do it at the surface level of accomplishing a task, it's getting done, but it's not getting done at the level of involvement, of intensity, of capable strategy that I have within me to address these issues with. And if I can learn to do that with all the things that I'm involved with at that unique ability that is within me to make my best better when I'm handling that, every one of those tasks can become a monumental success. Now, it's not possible to think about every one of those being worthy of it, but if I pick and choose the ones that have such great capabilities, I could be doing so much more with these tasks to create wealth, not only in a financial way, but in a enriching way, in a way that adds more value to the world.
You mentioned there is so many technology, there are so many new things and new cars and new dresses and new things and
New gadgets. Yeah.
So one of the fact is that you can be, of all the billions of options you have to choose one, and you can be in one place at one time, regardless of how many billions of millions of trillions of dollars you have, right? When you and I at this moment are together and talking about this, and we have chosen to be here singularly, and obviously we have given up millions of other choices or zillions of other choices we could have had. We could be in fancy place, or we could be in a different country, we could be on so many things. So you are always going to have one choice. You can be on one. It's like having a smorgasbord of 100 types of foods. If you want to taste everything, you're going to very, very soon be sick, right?
Yeah.
Once you have gone through sickness and doctor told you, and you have to eat fresh food, fresh vegetables, and fresh things, and if once you started eating those things and you experiences suddenly better health. So now when you are present in the smorgasbord, you are going to be very selective. These things are not going to excite you, because the result of having a better health is inspiring you to eat better. So similarly, once you tasted the real joy of adding the real value to others, the joy which you experience just feeding yourself is much less. So it's like this guy who was a chain smoker. And whenever he went to the doctor, he said, "You are killing yourself." I said, "Doc, I enjoy smoking. So everybody dies. One day I'm going to die. At least I'm going to die enjoying my life." So he wouldn't quit smoking. So it so happened that his daughter got married, and she was blessed with the beautiful angel, little girl. And this man fell in love with her granddaughter. But whenever he would go near her, she would have an asthma attack. So finally, the doctor got him in his room. He said, "You cannot go see this child, or you are going to kill her." I said, "Doc, I'd rather die because she's my life. I cannot live without her. So he said, you have to quit smoking. Not only quit smoking, you have to stay clean for 3 months and change your clothes and paint your house and completely get rid of the smoke. And then only you can see. So can you imagine this man who would not quit smoking in spite of doctor warning him his ill health? He quit smoking because of this girl. So similarly, when we taste adding value to others, it's a much higher incentive in making money just to be rich. So once you started adding value to others through an idea or a product, you will become wealthy, worldly rich beyond your imagination. If you stay on this path of continuously adding value and continuously improving your skills and making your best better, you will not only be satisfying your inner quest of adding value, you will have a joy which you experience every day, and you will also be part in utter gratefulness because you have this opportunity to serve the divine force present around you, right?
It brings us to a break. We have to take a quick break to get away from this. When we come back, I want to follow up again with, I think, that real critical question of how we find what we are uniquely capable of doing. How do we really, now we've been inspired by it, by understanding all of this, how do we really figure that out so we can be the people that we were intended to be while we're here? This is Stress Free Living. We'll be back in a moment. All right, we're open to you. Welcome to our new people that have just joined us. We welcome you. And anybody else have a quick thought or question for Ratanjit?
One thing that I was thinking to answer your question, Ray, about how do you find your unique abilities and that type of thing, there's like assessments you can take. There's one called Strengths Finder, Clifton Strengths, where it tells you your natural ways of thinking, behaving, and feeling that can turn into your greatest talents. And the report is uniquely yours. Like the likelihood you'll meet someone with your report is like 1 in 295 undecillion, like in rank, because your report is so uniquely tied to your personality. So there's things you can do like that. But also I think about past experiences that have really shaped you, like pain and struggle that you've overcome that help to turn your story. And then you want to then give back and help others who are going through that pain and struggle now. Those are just kind of some ideas that I've been thinking of as you talk about trying to find that.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Anybody else have something quickly to add before we go back? I'm going to build that into the question when I come back, Ratanjit. So I'm warning you. Anybody else, real quick?
I would like to add one thing about adding value. The challenges in our own life changes from time to time in the type of job you are assigned, type of business you're doing. So is there some common factor in adding value?
Yes.
We are back on Stress Free Living. Sorry that we do not always have time to continue our conversations with some of our Zoom guests. By the way, if you'd like to be a part of this, check out the Stress Free Living Radio on our YouTube channel. Just search on that. And when you do, you'll see that we give you access for our Zoom calls every single week. We'd love to have you be part of our conversation before, during, and after our program. Ratanjit, we only have a couple of minutes left here. I left before the break talking about what I think is an all-important question. If we are unique masterpieces and we all have incredible talents and gifts and skill sets that are unique to us, when empowered by the universal power that is around us, how do we ultimately determine what we are supposed to do? Now, before I let you answer that, one of our Zoom guests said, and I know she's in human resources and personal development, and she says that there are all kinds of assessments that are available now, some really powerful ones that talk about our personalities and talk about our special traits and inherent and education and things. And then she also mentioned our experiences, our unique experiences that we go through that have such an impact on who we are. Is that the recommended route? Would you say that those are a good start, or is it more of a spiritual answer that says we have to search within us? What is the answer? How do we find ultimately what we are supposed to do?
If you are remaining part in the human body mode and your brain is run by the human body mode, yes, these are the tools which you have to use. You have to assess what you are good at and all those things. But once you are in the spiritual mode, when I started my company and hired most experienced people, I was failing. And once I restarted my company, I hired a fresh college graduate, has zero experience. They did not know what they did best. But once I converted them through a constant training of oneness, we became so successful that ultimately we were acquired by Dow Chemical. So to have your inner self dictate, my education is all, I am a scientist. I did not know anything about marketing. But the marketing things we have achieved are defeated biggest players in the industry. So what I'm saying is that the force within you knows far beyond your education and experience can ever teach you. So until you tap and be guided by the resource in you, rather than your body mode, you cannot become extraordinary. And that is why they say, law of acceptance, law of attraction. When you started with posting on the mirror, this is what I want to do, law of attraction does not work when you remain in the human body mode. Law of attraction only works when you migrate and run your brain with the divine power, which is secure and free of ego and greed. So you have to migrate yourself into the force which is enlivening you, that mode, right?
There's so much more to understand, and we are out of time here today. We won't be able to develop these thoughts much further, but it just seems to be a unique combination that we have to obtain. I absolutely agree with what you're presenting in terms of digging down deep and understanding the abilities that are within us that can be amplified by the empowerment of the universal oneness. but I also know how experiences in my life have changed me deeply and redirected me so much. So it seems to be a combination of our human experiences and that universal power that is within us as helping to make this, allow us to make these decisions. Definitely want to continue this conversation. Maybe next week we can advance this further so we can truly understand this secret, which is so important to people that really want to be all that they can be in this human life. Ratanjit, thank you for sharing this, for sharing all your thoughts with us today. Some really interesting ideas and loving thoughts that you always share with us. We appreciate it. Thanks to all of our guests that were with us and our listeners and viewers, wherever you may be. We appreciate it. Remember, we're all playing the same game. We hope we've added value to your life. We'll talk to you again soon. All right. Now it is time to open up your mics. Jogesh, I apologize. We had the music playing in my ear and being prompted that we had to begin. So you can continue now if you'd like to, and then anybody else who would like to share your thoughts.
Yes, rather good morning, everyone. I understand there was time shortage. My question, sort of a query is, with phases in your life, when you are a young student, then you are in your job, then you are obliged to give back to the society, the requirements and the challenges of the life are different. So does this transformation into a spiritual mode remain the same or way to achieve the things, or there are different aspects to be targeted? And the biggest thing is, we know our mental faculty after having experienced so much of in life, but how there is unlimited realm of spiritual mode, how to get into that? That's a big challenge, I think, unless there is a guided master like Mr. Ratanjit to guide.
So actually, it's, we have mentioned this thousands of times. Our life, we gain our knowledge and we collect our knowledge, we file our knowledge, we talk about our knowledge, we lecture people about our knowledge, and we write books about our knowledge, but we hardly practice that. What we live and practice are our habits. Until that knowledge is converted into your living habits, that knowledge only remains as a window dressing. So this knowledge of you being a divine power remains as that. We never live in that mode because we have a habit of living in the human body mode. So we live with fear, greed, uncertainties, and ego, because that is our habits. So how to change that? We have talked about this exercise because they understand from research that you can develop new habits if you do something consecutively at the same time on a regular basis. So to change that habit of living in the human body mode and living in the oneness and the spiritual mode, so you do this exercise every morning at exactly the same time. And what you do is, after you get ready and stand in front of the mirror and see this human body. And then you realize what this human body is capable of doing. It creates its own blood. It's automatic. You don't do anything. Even the child a mother conceives and eventually gives birth to, she doesn't really knows how to do that. It happens automatically through this human body. So this is amazing human body, which is again gifted to us. And you find yourself to be utterly grateful for this gift. And then you close your eyes and open your eyes and look into your eyes and see a divine force present in you. You bow to this divine force because that is not you, that is the divine force. So suddenly you realize you are not the human body, you are not the enlivening force, you are simply do not exist. And once you begin to be aware of this divine force enlivening you, when you come out of this exercise, you look into your child's eyes, you see the same divine force. Look into your spouse's eyes, you see again the same force. You look in the stranger's eyes, you see again the same force. You suddenly, slowly develop this habit of continuously looking at other person as a divine force. And sooner or later, you will find an incentive to serve that divine force. And when you are serving the divine force, it's like a young mother, 17, 18, or 20-year-old girl who is, before she got married, she is mostly spending her time in looking pretty and fashion. Once she got married, she got a baby, her whole time is spent in the well-being of the baby. And this biggest alarm could not wake her up. Now suddenly the smallest cry of the baby can wake her up. So once you see the divinity in others, so many of the qualities which become available to you, which you would be surprised that you possess that talent, you possess that skill, all that happens to you once you find that you are sent here, you are basically exist to serve the divine power present in all.
So the morning practice, once we adopt that along the path, then some hints, some revelations start coming up. Is that what you are reflecting?
Yes, automatically you will change. So initially, because you are in the body mode, you do this exercise for 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, and you will get bored. And oh my goodness, nothing is happening. But if you continue doing this exercise for a longer period, it is going to change that, convert you into the spiritual mode instead of a human body mode.
Well, we'll try again. In the praise, one does aim for a bigger thing in life, and aspirations grow in, say, while going to sleep and all that. But this morning exercise, which you have indicated, is more than a prayer, I guess. Would try. Thank you.
The prayer separates you from the divine force. You pray to somebody separate. So it's not oneness. Once you see nothing but that divine, you disappear. Only one exists. That is the difference.
One of the expressions that I tell everybody is that you play the cards with the hand that you're dealt. So you have to learn that you are dealing with the situation, whatever your dealt the cards that you have to play with. But what you just have shared now kind of says that the number of cards are unlimited if you are able to operate in this other mode. If you realize, if you have the habit and you now know that you can live your life with that divine within you and the divine in everybody, now it suddenly seems like those cards are unlimited. So you can do everything. You're not limited to the hands that you're dealt. And that's, that changes the rules, because the other one is so limiting. I mean, obviously you got to figure out the problem based on that.
Yeah, typically we live a life, I have only this degree, and I have only this much experience, I have only this much money, I have only, so I'm limited. So you live life under those limits.
Right.
Once you have no limits, you are one. The whole, abundance happens once you realize that you own nothing, but you own everything. Because everything is you. Everything is divine power. Everything exists because divine power exists in everything. So abundance happens by knowing that you own nothing. Poverty happens when you look at your bank account and your income and your life. You are limited. You are poor. Doesn't matter if you have $1 million or $1 billion, you always have limited amount. And you are always full of greed, fear. You are fear of losing money. Market crumbles, you lost money. But once you realize that you are part of the universe, there's no end.
Anybody else have any thoughts today? Questions for Ratanjit?
I have a question. I think, like, knowing all of this now, if you were to go back, let's say, to when your daughter was small, right? Would you, I guess, like, what kind of education system would you put her through? What fundamental principles do you think are essential for kids to learn? Because I find, like, we live in this society that, emphasizes the traditional subjects like math, English, and science. And a lot of parents are we're stuck in this bit of a fear mentality, right? Like, as much as I probably don't know this to be true for myself, and that's why I'm still in this fear mentality. But even though I know in my heart that kids should just know what you're talking about, right? They need to just develop their unique talents and figure out how they can contribute to the world and live from this space of oneness. So really, like, why do they even need to learn all the other subjects in school? And are they even necessary? Like, what would you do if your daughter was young again and you had to choose an education model for her? What would you put her through, knowing what you know now?
See, psychologists tell her that the human character is formed before the age of 6. And rest you operate after getting education and money and everything with the same psychology which you have developed at the age of 6. So it is very critical that during that early age, you teach her what she is, what he is. You are not a human body, but you are the divine force. My mother fed me not the answer, but questions. One of the question I think I told this story many times. It is worth repeating that young, when I was 5.5 or 6, when in one instance in the school, there was some kind of a competition. So I stood first and I was given a trophy. And I came home and showed my mother. So I was very happy and she was happy also. She hugged me and kissed me. And I told, what my principal told me. My principal said that one day I'm going to make a name for myself. So my mother laughed and hugged me and put me in her lap, and she said, "See, before you can make a name for yourself, don't you have to know your name?" So I said, "My name is Ratanjit." She said, "That's what I called you because I did not want the neighbor's voice to show up when I call you for dinner. I don't know your name." So I said, "How do I find my name?" So that is going to take a very long lifetime journey to find your name. But that journey you have to travel yourself. I cannot help you. I can only give you a hint. I can give you a key to decipher your name. But to decipher that key, it may take you several years. So I said, "What is the key?" Key is oneness. We are all one. I said, "But you are sitting here, I'm here, we are two." So she said, "That is why it is going to take a lifelong to decipher the key." So that stayed with me throughout my life. That basically built who I am today. I don't know whether I answered your question or no.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you tell that story and I love it. I guess for me, like I'm also coming from, you know, like from a work standpoint where I'm building a new education model for families in the world. And sometimes I wonder, like, I just wonder, like, do we need to put such a huge emphasis on academics? Like I'm already building this model. It's not a huge emphasis on academics and really trying to build more on each individual child. But even, and I see this in myself, I still see like the fear, coming out of like, oh, well, yeah, I'm still instilling these concepts into my kids, and they're, I've talked to them about oneness, but they still need to be really good in math, and they still need to be really good in English, and they still need to be awesome in science. And I still have this like fear mentality in the back of me. And I guess I just wonder how to get rid of it. So I could, dive into this fully, if that makes sense.
Wisconsin University in Wisconsin did a research, and they found that in your 4-year curriculum of degree, a bachelor's degree, or when you go to college and you spend 4 years, the actual study, real hard to core understanding study, happens only for 6 months. If you are focused, if you are interested, if you are really into it, you can learn all that what you spend on for 4 years in 6 months. So once you are motivated to make a difference, all the science and technology and all those things can be learned very quickly. But we do not give proper incentive to children to learn. to educate themselves. Right?
If I could add a little something to that, Rika, we had a statistic in our last call that we did at the office, and we do a monthly call for our members, and we threw some slides up on the screen about AI and what AI is supposed to be doing by 2030, which is only 6 years away now. And it's there are some people that are saying well over 20% of the current jobs will be eliminated by AI by 2030. And I think it was something like 71% will be impacted by it. So to your point, all the more of the things that are being taught in schools today, the basics of how to read, write, do arithmetic. My grandchildren now, I talk to them about arithmetic. They do everything with calculators. They don't even teach the same types of math anymore because they know everybody carries a calculator on their phone. They don't write in cursive anymore. They're not teaching cursive because everything with digital is all printed in non-cursive language. So they don't even take time to do that anymore. The things that I grew up with when I was educated in, so much of that is no longer relevant. Even a lot of the science and things, because they get answers instantly through Google search and those types of things. So it's just changed. The whole paradigm has shifted. So my point is that all the more with those changes, with those things that used to be so critical that are no longer critical, even in our lifetime, it seems to me that what Ratanjit is talking about is more important than ever for the kids for the future. That foundation in those first 5 or 6 years, ideally, but even if you didn't do it in 5 or 6 years because your kids are 8 or 10 or 12, you still have a chance to really make an impact on them at a critical young age to really talk about these things, because everything else truly are just tools. Everything else are just things that, Ratanjit always shares a story, about the guy with the drill. And if you know what you're doing, you drill the holes exactly as you need them. If not, you can just put holes all over the house and drill everything through the ceilings and the floors and the walls, and you can have all kinds of fun and have all kinds of holes, but it doesn't do any good.
You have a holy house.
Yeah, we have a holy house, and if it rains, you're in big trouble. So it does seem that those tools have to be dramatically changed. I just had coincidentally, I met with the superintendent of schools for our district right around us here because we're going through for some tax credits, and you have to get sign off by the school superintendent. And we talked about what we had to talk about, and then he spent the rest of the meeting saying, can people like you, Scott and myself, and my son was there, can you help us to develop the curriculum that our kids need to have going forward? Because we acknowledge, school leaders acknowledge that what they've been teaching and doing for all these decades is not going to be what they need going forward to fit in. I mean, it's staggering to think that 21% of the jobs of today's world are going to be gone in 6 years. I mean, that is just, and that's the tip of the iceberg. That's with AI as it is now, not as it's going to be in a year or two when it's even so much more developed. And so, I think the answer is this. I really do. I think this is the solution that says you have to truly find what that unique masterpiece is within you. Who is that unique masterpiece?
Another thing is when you take an example of a company, there's a CEO in the company.
Mhm.
And under that CEO, there's a head of marketing, head of technology, head of finance, head of human resource, head of manufacturing, and so on. So all these heads in their particular field They are better qualified than the CEO. In other words, the CEO is the dumbest person in that company, technically.
Right.
Why that person is a CEO? Because she has a mission to add the highest value to the customer, to the society, through the product or services. And all these other players basically help the CEO to implement that. So to lead, to become a leader, you have to have a clear vision of adding the highest value. How are you going to add the highest value? You can always find the expertise and the technology and people to help you achieve that.
Got it. No, that's good. I think I just needed some validation. I mean, with with the education system that I'm building, we are doing, like, we're really stepping away from the traditional system, and it's going very well. And we have families in 4 different countries now, joining us. And I guess I'm here in Europe at the moment, talking to a lot of families that are in this new education program. And there's still, like, I'm as much as their kids are having a blast and enjoying, like, I've had a few families come and be like, oh, well, but they're not learning US Common Core math like they would back home, or they're not doing, they're not writing to the caliber that they would have been in grade 3 back home. So I guess for me, sometimes I'm like, okay, am I disservicing these kids if they're not academically, as far along as they would have been if they were back in the US or the UK? But I do firmly believe that they're being expanded as human beings, and, seeing more commonality between, people of all different cultures, and understanding themselves and working on more personal projects. And I see them thriving. I guess I'm always kind of just wondering if, I think you answered my question. I think these concerns are more fear-based mentality, and to just keep going in the direction that we are, because it is time for change in education. And I think we're better servicing the kids with new models like this. So thank you.
I need to add one more thing, though. I think of everything else that you've just said and we've said, I think that's all true. But I think the communication abilities are more important than ever before. And I think that unfortunately, in today's education has deteriorated tremendously. Again, talking with my son, who taught English for 17 years and grew so frustrated that they couldn't, that 2 16-year-olds couldn't communicate in clear sentences anymore, because they have now texted with codes and symbols and short phrases. And that's how they do so much of their communication, that when you actually try to engage them in a conversation, they can't. When you actually ask them to put a paragraph together explaining what they want to do, or what they learned or what they experienced, they can't even communicate a paragraph of sentences. And these are 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. It's mind-boggling that the communication skills have dropped to that level. So I think while, math maybe isn't as important and some of those areas anymore, for whatever reasons, but I think communication is more important than ever. I think that's going to be the part of AI that is never going to replace the one-to-one communication. I mean, being able to empathize and show emotion and understand what people need to hear, and how you need to bridge the differences with communication. I think that's going to become more critical than ever. And I think that needs to be a big part of the curriculum.
Absolutely.
But the communication, all the language, all the word slides and videos and all that constitute only 7% of the communication. 38% is the tone of the language, and 55% is the body language.
Yep.
And you cannot teach tone of the language and body language, which is basically comes out of once you are respectful and empathetic and kind, those things automatically happens when you teach those things. So we are teaching skills to communicate. They can make very good slides. And, one of my customers, who was my biggest customer, once told me, always would tell, Ratanjit, you got to find somebody good salesman. Your products are so good, and you find somebody's good salesman. So once he called me, he says, my goodness, this guy who came from this company was such a slick salesman. His presentation was so good and everything was so good. And you should hire him. I said, did you buy anything from him? So no, I didn't buy anything. I don't get carried away with these flashy things. So here he buys everything from me. I'm not a salesman. He doesn't buy anything from this flashy guy, although the concept he carried is you have to have a good salesman.
Absolutely, I agree totally. And when I said the word communication, I wasn't talking about the words. The word portion will be replaced by AI. The writing itself of the words is going to be all done by artificial intelligence. It's being done right now that way.
That is still 7%.
I know, exactly. That's my point. The other 93% of communication is what I am suggesting that we teach. And
that is only comes from the spiritual mode.
Right.
Well, I can say, like, I mean, with my business, what we've done is set up these basically like micro schools and communities in different parts of the world. And, it's actually really, really interesting to see how, so we have these children coming from all different parts of the world to live, let's say, in Portugal or Greece or Italy for 3 months to 6 months or 9 months of the year. And what I'm noticing in all these kids, and my own as well, is that they become so they almost don't see the difference in anybody anymore, because they're now used to living like a local in all these different countries, and learning how to adapt and integrate with different kids from around the world on a regular basis. And it's so cool to see how, and I personally think we have so much to learn from kids, because I think kids innately from that young age, they don't see a difference in anybody. Like I think innately kids come seeing more oneness amongst each other than I think adults do. And I think as they grow older, we kind of suck that beauty out of them, if you will, or like, I don't know if it's culture or, then everyone starts to see each other differently. But I think from a very young age, kids already see the similarities between themselves and other people and other cultures. And it's amazing to see how these kids are growing and evolving as humans just by living this kind of different lifestyle and being taught differently. Like my son, Mahan, he's now played soccer like with the local Portuguese league, and then he played with the local Italian league and then the local Greek league. And it's so beautiful to see how, even though he couldn't speak the same language as any of these other boys, he's the only one who only spoke English, they very quickly could become best friends, beyond language, beyond culture, beyond everything. There's this commonality of love and oneness that they were able to like instantly bond on. And I think the more we let kids kind of just be in their natural state, I think we can learn even more from them on how we are all one, almost not even needing to teach it to them sometimes. I think it's more like letting them be in a habitat or be in an environment that naturally allows them to flourish the way they're meant to flourish, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm always bottling my own ego, I find, because I find sometimes like there's my ego feels like we need to teach them so much. Like there's so much that we need to teach them and tell them this and do this. And I find the moments that sometimes they thrive the most is when you just let go and let them just be. And then if anything, you're learning from them rather than me trying to teach them something. I don't know if that makes sense.
What do you think, Ratanjit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we have divided this world into separate nations. Kids don't see it that they only see it as one. We teach them, you are this and you are that, you are Hindu, you are Muslim, you are Christian. The kids don't understand that. And basically, religions are only schools of spirituality. If they stop teaching spirituality, their existence is useless.
So how much do we teach kids and how much do we learn from them, Ratanjit?
That's the question.
Are they are they better off if we don't teach them?
One thing is that when we repeat a curriculum, we are limiting what we teach them. Knowledge is unlimited. Knowledge has to be acquired by experience and by learning and by an initiative to add value. So we have to first teach them their purpose, who they are. And once we teach them their purpose of adding value, now they can find the tools themselves. We are giving them tools which are limited. We have boxed them into a curriculum.
So how do I go about, like, I believe that, and I'm totally cool with that, doing that with my kids. But then how do I pass that message on to like parents who might not be of the same mentality, but I'm now servicing in different parts of the world and are your client, who are still thinking the other way? Do you empathize with them? Do you stand firm? What do you do?
Answer is within you. So look deep inside you.
Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Deeper.
Do that meditation of looking in the mirror. That is not just a thing that is completely transform you. And you'll find ideas and energies which you never thought of existed. So Ray, what is the topic next?
We're going to have to do a continuation of this, but we haven't heard from Dr. Jagjit, and he's stuck with us, or we've lost a lot of folks. But anything from you today, Doctor?
No, there are many. Well, Rekha has already mentioned many things. There are a few things which, in worldly word, what is a name? As Ratanjit Singh started with it, name, I feel we have started in worldly ways. The name is a group of qualities which any object has. Just like if we say it is a table, we know what the quality of a table is, and we have defined, given the quality, the name of a table or a chair or a book. But when it comes to human beings, we just name it. We don't look into the qualities or the oneness or what the unique feature of that person is. We don't name it by that. The name is given by the parents. So that was just a comment, what Ratanjit Singh always says. I wanted to add to it. And the second part.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay. And well, I fully agree. And I just, inspired by Ratanjit Singh, I wrote a few lines which I will just say out. We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten that we are human beings. We have classified ourselves into molds. We are molds of faith, color, caste, race, nation, and many others. We created multiple molds within molds. We created animosity among molds. We have sought only our security within and across molds. And we became molds from human beings, and we forgot who we are. So saying this thing, that's all what I say, but I would definitely like to know from Rekha the system which they are developing for oneness. And if she can pass on her contact, that would be so nice of her. Thank you.
Sure.
You can share the emails on.
Yeah,
the-
I'll put my website on the chat and my email so you have it, and feel free to reach out anytime. And we don't have a curriculum just on oneness. I don't want to mislead anybody. But it is a very alternative curriculum.
that
That's
is
done.
something which you have to teach first.
Hmm.
If you have
Maybe we can
time.
have a call just on that.
No, I have a comment on Dr. Jagjit's table. That table has, when you see a table, it has certain quality. And today's, because of the space limitations, they fabricate furniture which can be converted from a table into chair, into big couch. Similarly, once a human being is parked in oneness, it can attain just about any configuration. And it's not limited to being a table. So suddenly we change the definition of what a human is. Right now it has limitation. It has limited life. It has limited. So we basically call human assembly of organs. So we take it away from that definition and convert that into a powerhouse by changing into spiritual mode, oneness mode.
Thank you.
And I love what you had said, Doctor, and I love the words that you wrote. I try to write as many of those down as I could quickly, but we also, through our creativity, we change table. I mean, a table you envision quickly in your brain is a flat surface with legs. But I mean, I do a lot of my work and I just throw my briefcase on my lap and my computer on top of it, and that becomes my table. Sometimes I have to improvise and I just use a book. If I'm on an airplane, I just use my lap as a table. It's if you are creative, we can change words and rename things in ways that are entirely different than the original concept. So I think, I want to build on that idea with what is really our name, Ratanjit, maybe for our next show, to go back to your question, like what is our next topic? And I got to play with the wording there, because is our name, just like your great story with what your mother shared with you, is that really our name, or through better awareness, better knowledge, better searching, can we really discover what our real name is? And can we rename any of the things that are around us, like a table, and through creativity and improvisation, change anything in our life, the way that we've labeled it, the way that we've named it. So something I think there that we can build on for maybe next week's show. Might be a good way to continue these conversations. I saw that what you put up there, Rekha. So you don't have a .com. It's a .life. Is that a new?
Yeah, that's the website. Yeah, boundless.life.
Okay, I I know that there's a lot of new variations, .biz and those kind of things, but I didn't know .life was a new extension that way.
My company is called Boundless Life. So we were just able to make the website be boundless.life.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So I gotta check that one out.
I check it out.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoyed being with you. Thanks for being with us today. And we will be here next week. God willing.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.